Hey everybody, Brendan here. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be playing another part of the King's Indian attack speedrun here. And we are getting d5 played against us. Alright, let's play g3. We might see some sort of knight c6 and e5 like last game. And while we're waiting for the opening to show itself and to see what's going on here, I'd like to open the floor and say, hey, we're going to be doing a black version of this the second we hit 2000, and I'm wondering what you guys might want to see. Some have suggested the Sicilian against e4. I think I will be doing e4 and d4 at the same time. So if you have suggestions like that you'd like to see, then I am open to hear them. So just something to mention. So now if e5, we have a funny looking move here. Okay, they don't go into that. I was really hoping we'd see e5 here, but we could play e4. And they don't actually win a pawn, even though it looks like it at first. But our opponent plays bishop g4 instead. And I'm hoping we can get a normal King's Indian attack. I'll start with knight bd2. Generally, whenever we see these moves, we're happy to play moves like h3. I'm still thinking here. I like h3, let's play it. I don't know if I want to commit with g4 or anything yet. But I think it's time to go for something like e4. We need to go for some kingside attacks, because we haven't really gotten many of those as of late. And I can feel the comments burning already, you know, of why aren't there more attacks in the King's Indian attack? So I definitely want to get those going to please you guys. So knight d4 is something to consider. It wasn't played. So whenever they go for this exchange variation, we have to play it more positionally. Unfortunately. I'm sorry, guys. We have to. So playing this move c3 is one of my first steps to playing it positionally. I'm going to play moves like queen e2. And actually, I think this favors us when we look at this pawn structure. Generally, I think the best way for black to play this position is to play e5 and their pawn back to c6. So our goal here is to try to claim some sort of advantage at some point. First move I'm looking at is e5. e5 looks like it works. Knight takes e5, we can take it, and if bishop takes first, we can always just recapture. But then their knight gets to d5. So I'm not sure if I love that. Let's play a4. So again, we're playing it more positionally this time. I apologize, guys. But what can you do? So they play knight to e5 here, and I'm looking at g4. So they could be trying to take on f3. I think this is a very appropriate approach to the position. I want to keep my bishop here if I can. And I also want to try to keep attacking chances alive. I want to play this game a little bit differently than the other ones where I play it a lot more positionally. So I'm looking at g4. We have to calculate knight takes g4, h takes g4, bishop takes g4. I don't really feel like it fully works out, though. I think we can play something like queen e3, get out of the pin. We're threatening to trade, and looks like things will go well for us after that. So let's go g4. This is provoking them into taking, and again, I don't really think this is the right approach. We have too much defense on f3. We have 3 different pieces defending it, and they would only have 2. So that would not be enough. They'd have to add another attacker and then remove a defender, or add 2 attackers or remove like 2 defenders. So that's just too much within a move or two to do. So I think we'll be okay. Is there anything else? Maybe they take? If they take, I'm pretty happy though, because that was kind of what I was planning to play against. I'll play knight takes if they play bishop g6. I was thinking of going for the bishop pair, going knight h4, take on g6, play e5, f4, things like that. Just go crazy on them. But I want to show different plans. I don't want to just play the exact same way every single time. Generally, especially at the start, I was trying to play what I think is probably the correct way to play. However, our opponents were playing against us. Because whenever you play these hyper-modern openings like the King's Indian attack, you don't take space in the center, and with that information, you need to understand that you allow your opponents a lot of flexibility in their plans. Because, well, they can take the center in different types of ways. And generally, what I like about something like the King's Indian attack is, okay, we give up that center, but after that, we try to exploit any plans they have. So it's much more like a reactionary opening. Whatever they play, we prove that it's incorrect. And I think we're actually winning a piece here now after knight takes e5. Queen takes e5. I have f4 and then f5. Takes, and then f4 attacking the queen, and then f5 trapping the bishop. So we got to go for it if we have it. I don't really see any choice or any reason not to go for it. I don't know if choice is the right word, but hey, if we win a piece, then we should definitely exercise that. And they're not really in time to do anything else. Like if they queen d4 check here, then, you know, I would reconsider. But that's, again, another great reason of the pawn on c3 is there's no queen d4 check. So always consider those types of moves, but don't waste time. Right, so if I go back to the position when I played c3, this wasn't to me wasting time because my knight might go to c4, it might go to f1, it's defending e4 right now, it's in a good spot. Our opponent ends up resigning, so let's bring this to the analysis board here and discuss this further. So our goal is to be flexible with our potential plans, and our opponent therefore has flexibility with their immediate plans. So, of course, we play for the long game, and they're playing for the short one. So, bishop h5, e4, takes. And again, the c3, when we look at this knight on c6, we should immediately ask, are we happy against this knight? Are we not? If we play something like queen e2, maybe knight d4 pops up, right? Queen e2, knight d4, taking advantage of the pin, and c2's undefended now, so we probably should just go back to defend it. So making other moves, like c3 might just look like a purely prophylactic, purely defensive move, but it's far from the case. It's actually just saying, hey, I'm restricting a lot of your pieces, so that's the prophylaxis part, but I wouldn't really say it's defensive, it's more offensive. It's letting our other pieces start to get out. Maybe our queen goes to c2, maybe goes to e2, and it really just depends on what our opponent might do. So, for example, if they castle long, c3 is also extra beneficial because, hey, maybe this lets us play some sort of b4 crazy sacrifice on the side of the board. Or maybe not, right? That's the beauty of being able to maintain our plans. But going back here, bishop e7, queen e2, knight, castles a4. So a4 is another one of those like kind of waiting moves. This knight's pretty good. You could argue that this bishop's not really so great, but we're trying to see what our opponent's doing. One thing we could do is knight c4, bishop g5, and try to either take on f6 or take on e7. I think that's a very appropriate plan. Or we can just leave the bishop here because it's not really doing anything incorrect. Sure, it's undeveloped, but in these King's Indian attack positions, it's funny, but delaying development isn't such a bad thing as long as you know what you can delay for your development. Like this rook on a1 doesn't need to immediately be developed because something like a4 is extremely useful where, well, the rook is covering the pawn, and if it moved, then it wouldn't be, and maybe something like queen a5 would pop up and be annoying. So there's all these little nuances about the King's Indian attack just to be aware of. I was really hoping to see like d4, e5. Unfortunately, guys, we didn't get it. Maybe in the future we will. If we got it here, I was considering probably something like g4 and knight h2, trying to go for f4, f5, with similar ideas of trying to trap this bishop in and win it, just like we did in the game. And even if we don't win it, the good thing is, in this position, if we go back to this part here, f4, let's just say they didn't blunder with taking, I think they should have taken here instead. And the idea is when we recapture, their bishop is just in time to move, and we're not in time to play f4, f5 with tempo. when their queen is dragged to e5, of course, it's tempo when we play f4 and f5. So it all comes forcingly, or in a forcing manner. Anything else to mention here? I'm not really sure. I think that's about it. But yeah, let's actually quickly go back to one of the things that I was talking about before. So if we get a position like this, and we play some sort of like knight h2, let's assume they're casting short, because like the King's Indian, where they castle short and we castle short, is interesting. I don't think it's objectively best here, because there's like h5 ideas for them instead. But if we get a position like this, all of a sudden they have to be very careful, and they have to play something like h6. And this isn't something they want to do, because then f5 comes with a bit more gusto. Causes more problems for them, where we're maybe threatening to take on e6. If they ever take, maybe we take with the g-pawn, king h1, rook g1, we start tacking on the g-file. This is very common in the King's Indian defense, so we should definitely look at it in the attack version as well. Just a few things to mention there. That's essentially it. Again, guys, don't be afraid to make moves that restrict your opponent's pieces. This does not mean you're being defensive. It simply means you're being solid. That's all. All right. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.